أعزائي مشاهدي أخبار الآن، نحن الآن في العاصمة الصومالية مقديشيو، وفي استضافة معالي وزير الإعلام الصومالي ليحدثنا أكثر عن جماعة الشباب والحرب الدائرة الآن على الأراضي الصومالية. معالي الوزير داود عويس جامع وزير الإعلام الصومالي، أهلا بك معنا. بداية حدثنا عن جماعة الشباب وكيف استطاعت أن تنتشر في مفاصل الدولة الصومالية بهذا الشكل وما هو سر قوتها؟
This is a terrorist group which has been building for the last 15 years. It has been spreading all over the country, trying to attract people with a wrong ideology about Islam. They were taking advantage of the fragility of Somalia. They were also taking advantage of the fragmentation of the Somali political groups. So that's one of the contributions that gave them to rise up in many areas with that false perception about Islamic religion. And they also took the advantage of the vacuum that existed in many parts of Somalia because of the civil war that affected the country for the last 3 decades. So that's how Al-Shabaab grew up and they spread all over the country. And also they took advantage of, as I earlier said, of the political divisions in the country. For example, in the last 5 years, there was no any significant attack or operations against Al-Shabaab that the previous government waged against Al-Shabaab. So that also gave Al-Shabaab the strength. They also get the strength to collect more money from the public. They also got more strength to buy weapons. They also strengthened their ability in many other parts of the country. So they took that advantage, and for the last 5 years, they got that opportunity, and they were thinking that they are there to grow. But when this new government led by President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud came into power, it changed that trajectory to a total war against Al-Shabaab to make sure that the stability of Somalia cannot come up until Al-Shabaab is defeated. Al-Shabaab has also been seen as a hindrance to the state building of Somalia. So the government decided that this has to be agenda number one to make sure that for Somalia to prosper, for Somalia to have a stable government, for Somalia to have a stable politics, Al-Shabaab has to be eliminated. And that elimination should not end only in Somalia. It also should also be seen in the regional countries or maybe in the neighboring countries to see that Al-Shabaab does not regroup in any other place on this earth or in this region. So that's why we also brought together the frontline states to be part of these operations against Al-Shabaab, or at least to be vigilant, because when Al-Shabaab is defeated in Somalia, they will probably cross the border to the neighboring countries, and that's going to be another threat to the region. So we're making sure that they are being eliminated in Somalia, they are being eliminated in the entire region of Horn of Africa, so that Horn of Africa is going to be a stable region.
هل لك أن تشرح لنا الوضع على الأرض الآن؟ الوضع على أرض المعركة، كم من الأراضي تسيطر عليها جماعة الشباب، وكم من المعارك التي تنتصر فيها أو تنهزم فيها، وكم يقدر عددهم؟
Let me put it on this way, and the war against Al-Shabaab announced by the government last year has 3 main components. The main component is the military component, the second one is the financial component, and the third one is the ideology. And on top of that, the war is divided also into 2 parts. The phase 1 is that what's going on now in central Somalia, and that was the backbone of the fight against Al-Shabaab, where civilian forces were supporting the Somali National Forces to make sure that they achieve a total victory against Al-Shabaab in the central region. So the president is currently in Dosamareb in central Somalia to ensure that the first phase of the war against Al-Shabaab is finished. The idea is to eliminate the remnants of Al-Shabaab who are still remaining in small pockets in those areas in the states of Hirshabelle and the Galmudug states. You have been following, I think, the news for the last few weeks, whereby the Somali National Forces, with the support of the local people, were able to take over more towns and more areas from the Al-Shabaab, and that is a very significant victory for the government. What we're expecting now is to make sure that the first phase of the war will be finished very soon, and the second phase will be spread into other areas like southwest Somalia and in Jubaland as well, where we want to focus the second phase. In central Somalia, as I said, there are remnants of Al-Shabaab that we are pursuing to make sure that they are eliminated. In Jubaland and the southwest also, they are very important. That will be the second phase, especially Jubaland. Some areas of Jubaland is where Al-Shabaab has got its central command, or where it has its headquarters in a place called Jilib. In southwest, that is also very important because Lower Shabelle, which is very close to Mogadishu, is where Al-Shabaab always used as a hub to prepare attacks against Mogadishu. But since the war against them started last year, the government and the civilians made sure that they hindered or they eliminated all the elements of Al-Shabaab in Lower Shabelle, especially the components that were manufacturing the explosives that were being transported to Mogadishu to cause mayhem against the people. So those two areas, southwest Somalia and the Jubaland, are very important because that will be the second phase. And the second phase means that we want to make sure that we don't have Al-Shabaab anymore in this country. Then we achieve our goal of having Somalia free of terror by the end of this year. And the way the fighting is going on now is that the civilians are also taking part in this. That has also boosted the morale of the Somali National Forces because they are seeing the local people being part of that fighting. And the local people are also supporting that because they know that this is their destination. Their destiny is linked to the liberation of those areas. For Somalia to get prosperity, for those areas to get basic services and development and other progresses, they have to make sure that there is no any elements of Shabab remaining in their areas. We want to make sure that we have a peaceful country whereby Somalis can work very easily, whereby we can bring investors to develop the resources we have. So this is the way the war looks like so far. After finishing the phase one, we are going to the second phase, and the second phase is going to be very important because that's where we are aiming to make sure that the headquarters of Al-Shabaab is taken by the government. All the remaining areas in southwest and Jubaland are also in the hands of the government. That's what we're expecting.
ما هو تركيب جماعة الشباب، قيادتها وتدرج القيادة بها، ومع من المنظمات الأخرى رصدتم تعاون خارجي لها؟
And thank you very much for that question as well. And when it comes to the leadership of Al-Shabaab, this is a terrorist group that cannot come public. They are always living in the hideouts. And when we go back to their history, especially on the leadership perspective, we had a terrorist called Ahmed Airo who was killed, and then followed by another leader called the Godani, who was also traced down and killed, who was also tracked down and killed. And the others who are now in power in different categories and different departments, they're also in hiding. So they are not leaders who can come public to the people to show themselves that this is so and so. But what we know is that there is a terrorist called Ahmed Diriye who claims to be the leader of the group, and there are other commanders who are working with him. And as a terrorist group, they always don't live in the same place. Since they are going to hide out, even some militants of Al-Shabaab cannot understand or do not know where their leaders live or where their leaders are because they make it very secret. But I believe me that since the government is making sure that it is tracking down all the entire group of Al-Shabaab, we will find them out. There has been a lot of attacks against the leadership of Al-Shabaab and the other militants, and we succeeded to kill a number of them. So they also going to be among those who are going to be apprehended or being killed in the operations as we speak now. This is a group which is also linked to Al-Qaeda. And it has been transporting the ideas of Al-Qaeda into Somalia. Somalia is a Muslim Sunni. We have ideology, and Islamic is a religion of peace. But for them, they are changing the religion into a religion of violence, killing people, making justification that this is what the religion says. But in Mogadishu, recently there was a meeting by the religious leaders who are discussing what this group is and what they are doing to the people. It has been concluded that this is a Khawarij group. This is a group which is not related to the Islamic religion. Their actions and their behaviors are not related or do not have anything to do with Islam. And the conclusion was that it is an obligation, it is a responsibility to every Somali to make sure that we fight against this terrorist group, to make sure that we eliminate them from the country so that we regain our religion, our peaceful coexistence among the Somali clans and all Somali societies living together without any problem. And when it comes to the support that the Somali government is getting, this is very clear that Somalia is fighting this war, which is not a war of Al-Shabaab only. As I said, it's Al-Qaeda linked, and it's not posing only a threat to Somalia. It's also posing a threat to the neighboring countries like Kenya, like Djibouti, like Ethiopia. And that's why early this year, the president has gathered a meeting in Mogadishu, whereby the leaders of this regional states came to attend. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia was here, the President of Kenya was here, the President of Djibouti also was here. They were discussing and how to cooperate in the war against Al-Shabaab. Because if we eliminate them in Somalia, they will definitely cross the border to these countries and causing mayhem in those countries. And after that mayhem, it means that they might come back to Somalia to create more problems. So that's going to affect the whole region. That's why we recognize that there is a need for the regional countries to work together to make sure that we eliminate Al-Shabaab together. And this should not be a limited job for one country. So that's why I was saying that we also have regional partners who are with us in this war.
حضرتك تحدثت عن علاقة الشباب بالقاعدة وأنها تنتمي للقاعدة، فهل بعد وفاة الظواهري، مقتل الظواهري قائد القاعدة، هل رصدتم أي علاقات بين إيران بسبب وجود سيف العدل القائد المتوقع للقاعدة هناك وبين جماعة الشباب؟
And as I earlier said, yes, we agree that they are linked to Al-Qaeda, and we consider them that they are also part of international terrorism who are causing mayhem in our country. There was no any contact we made with them, and we don't think that there is a need now to have any contact with Al-Qaeda or maybe the Al-Shabaab itself until we make sure that we eliminate them in our country and make sure that we are in the top position to make sure that we are taking the safeguard of the Somali people as our first priority. So the first priority we have in this country now is to make sure that we eliminate this menace that is causing mayhem not only to the country and also can cause mayhem in the region and also can cause a lot of problems in the global security. So our aim is to make sure that we have a total victory against Al-Shabaab. Since he became the leader of Al-Qaeda, definitely they will still be communicating, they will still be contacting, because he is the leader of Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda is linked to Al-Shabaab. So if the former leader was killed, definitely the new leader will communicate with his affiliates all over the world. So we assume that there is an existing relations between them, but that's what we don't care. What we care is to make sure that we eliminate this group, which is the link of Al-Qaeda in Somalia.
مهاد كاراتي، العقل المدبر لأكثر العمليات الدموية في تاريخ الجماعة سواء كان في الصومال أو في كينيا، ما هي معلوماتكم عنه؟ وهل سيتولى قيادة جماعة الشباب أم سيقوم بعمل جماعة جديدة، بتأسيس جماعة جديدة؟
He is one of the terrorists of the group. We know him that he's one of the gangsters who are causing mayhem, the bloodshed of the people. And as you know, he's being sought after by the Somali authorities, and he knows that. That's why he cannot come out very easily. So we believe that he is in his hideout, and he's among the top officials that we are tracking down. We are trying to find them, where their whereabouts. As the operations continue, we believe that we might go to his place of hiding if he's not killed in action. But as I earlier told you, that there are a lot of leaders in Al-Shabaab who are living in that kind of life of hiding themselves from being captured or from being killed or from being hunted inside or outside Somalia, They caused a lot of problems in Somalia. They caused a lot of problems outside Somalia. And I believe that not only in Somalia, he's also being sought out outside Somalia. So he is one of the people that the government are tracking to make sure that they are brought to justice, or they are killed in action, or they are apprehended to face the justice. And I think we cannot release any information about him. This is a security issue for Somalia, and we cannot share any information about his whereabouts or where our progress is being, the progress we are being made on hunting him. Maybe when we reach a result that we can share information with people, that time will come.
نأتي للنقطة من أكثر النقط أهمية. ما هي مصادر تمويل جماعة الشباب؟ الاقتصاد جماعة الشباب يسيطرون على أشياء كثيرة، الزكوات، الميناء، يفرضون الإتاوات على الشعب. ماذا رصدتم في هذه الأموال؟ من أين تأتي وإلى أين تذهب؟
I think when we are talking about the finance of Al-Shabaab, we are talking about the past. Because when the new government came into power last year, one of the steps we have taken is to make sure that the fighting against Al-Shabaab do not only limit it to a military. The financial aspect was also part of the fighting. As we speak now, I believe that we undermined or we weakened Al-Shabaab, its economical strength or its economical muscle, to 70 to 80% of its financial muscle was weakened during these operations. Because we gave directions, we cooperated with all the financial institutions, we cooperated with all the institutions that were supposed to be in part of this fighting to make sure that we stop the extortion of money that they are making to the people, and that money we know that was being used to buy weapons, to create conflict among the clans, to bring more discord among the people. So all of these financial channels have been closed. And even the checkpoints that they use to extort money from the people, especially the vehicles which are doing business or are making transport, they used it to collect money from those vehicles. That also stopped. And there were attacks against these checkpoints by the Somali government forces and the international partners. And we succeeded to make sure that they were all taken out. So most of the financial muscles of Al-Shabaab were weakened. Even the port, you mentioned the port. Yes, they used to take money from the port. That does no longer exist. And if we are talking about the muscle of financial strength of Al-Shabaab, we are talking about the past. In the last 5 years, yes, they had that muscle of collecting money from every corner of Somalia, even here in Mogadishu. But luckily or fortunately, we succeeded to close all these channels. And as we speak now, they are suffering financially, and that has contributed to their defeat in the battlefields, because they don't have the resources that they used to fund the war. So I believe that as we continue, this is going to be a history to talk about financial strength of Al-Shabaab, because as I'm telling you now, like 80% of their muscles is no longer existing.
يظن البعض أن هزيمة جماعة الشباب ستكون في صالح تنظيم داعش في الصومال وكينيا. فما هو رأيكم في ذلك؟
The focus now is on Al-Shabaab, but it doesn't mean that we are only targeting one terrorist group. Every extremist group that wants to affect the Somali stability and the whole region is also our enemy. So we are not going to limit ourselves to only fight Al-Shabaab. There were some cases that we have arrested or apprehended some members of Daesh. They were brought to justice. Some of them are in the prisons. Some of them were killed in action. So our target will not only be limited to Al-Shabaab. We are working together with the regional countries to make sure that we eliminate terrorism from this region. We want a stable Horn of Africa that is discussing about prosperity, that is discussing about cooperation, that is discussing about development. Yes, we are going to share a lot of information. We are going to work on the security sector, but our ultimate goal is to make sure that we have a stable Horn of Africa that is contributing prosperity and development and sharing development with other regions in the world.
ماذا تحتاج الصومال لتحقق الانتصار على جماعة الشباب وتمنع انتشارها وتمددها في إفريقيا والدول المجاورة مثل كينيا وفي الدول العربية أيضاً.
I think I also earlier explained to you the steps we have so far taken to make sure that we defeat Al-Shabaab from the battlefields. We have three agendas on fighting Al-Shabaab. One agenda is the military one, which is making a very successful stories. The second one is financial muscles, which has also been made a lot of progress, and the ideological war. Those three components are the three main agendas of the war. Yes, for Somalia, that is the first agenda, to make sure that our security is depending on to defeating Al-Shabaab. Defeating Al-Shabaab inside Somalia will need the cooperation from the public, from all the political groups, from all Somalis to unite to make sure that we eliminate this group for good and prepare for the country for the real and the genuine state building. And eliminating from Somalia will not be enough for the security of Somalia, or for the security of the region, or for the security of the world. We live in a globalization era now. We need our neighbors also to live in stability and share harmony and good relations with them. So for us to achieve that, we held a summit in Mogadishu to discuss about the security of the region, not only the security of Somalia. Our causes are linked to each other. We are linked at the hips. We are neighbors. We have common enemy, which is Al-Shabaab. If Al-Shabaab succeeds to go to other regions or to other countries in this region, then we are still in trouble. If Somalia is burning, the region is in trouble. If the region is burning, Somalia is in trouble. And the region itself will be in trouble. So to take that mutual responsibility, we decided that we need to make sure that we eliminate Al-Shabaab from Somalia and the entire region of Horn of Africa, especially Kenya, Ethiopia, and Uganda. And there are lively examples that the Al-Shabaab have also caused havoc in these countries. They carried attack in Kenya, they carried attacks in Ethiopia, they tried to carry attacks in Djibouti. So all these countries are aware of the threat posed by this terrorist group. So for us, our first steps is to make sure that we eliminate and weaken Al-Shabaab inside Somalia, and also we give a role to the neighboring countries to play to make sure that we no longer have this threat in this region, because it's going to hinder our progress. It's going to weaken or to undermine our other national agendas. For example, now Somalia was in civil war for many long times. We want to rebuild or reconstruct this country. You cannot rebuild this country without having stability. And the obstacle to the stability is Al-Shabaab. So when we remove Al-Shabaab, we know that reconciliation will follow. We know that the political stability will come. We know that the country is going to be fully democratic system functioning everywhere, because now we want to hold one person, one vote elections in the next elections. So if you don't have stability, you cannot have such kind of an election in the country. So what we are doing now is paving the way for a better future, of a better foundation for Somalia for the future. So that's why we think that this is a responsibility for every Somali. This is a responsibility for everyone in this region. So it's a common responsibility, is safeguarding the lives of the citizens of Horn of Africa, including Somalia.